Let's bring in Senator Tom Cotton, who spent yesterday with Herschel Walker in Georgia. Welcome back, Senator.
Hey, Brian. It's good to be back on the show with you.
Well, how did it go yesterday?
Oh, it was a great campaign rally in western Georgia, a Republican stronghold where Herschel Walker is going to have a huge turnout because the people of Georgia know that a vote for Raphael Warnock is a vote for Joe Biden. Raphael Warnock votes for Joe Biden 96% of the time. He's voted for trillions of dollars of spending, which has caused record high inflation. He's voted to throttle American oil and gas production, which is why we have such high gas prices. He's voted to go soft on criminals, which is why we have a crime wave all across our country. So on issue after issue, Raphael Warnock, who campaigned with puppies a couple of years ago, has turned out to be a lapdog for Joe Biden. Herschel Walker will be a bulldog for the people of Georgia.
How was he handling the controversy and the allegations about abortions he may or may not have paid for?
You know, Brian, Herschel has been very upfront with the people of Georgia for a long time that he is an imperfect, flawed person, as we all are. Herschel found God many years ago. He's been redeemed and saved by grace. And, you know, people in his life that he's hurt as well, like his ex-wife, have now accepted his apologies. He's done right by them. They fully support him in this race. So I think Herschel is a great redemption story for the people of Georgia. And in particular, if you read his autobiography, the struggles he had with mental health, which caused some of the problems earlier in his life, allows him to see exactly what families are struggling with when they face someone with a mental health challenge or perhaps with an addiction challenge, which, again, will allow him to be a strong voice for the people of Georgia. On the abortion question more broadly, Brian, you know, in all my campaigns across the country, obviously the Democrats are trying to dial it up to 11 on abortion, speculating about what Republican majorities might do as a hypothetical. But we don't have to speculate about them, Brian. We know exactly what they would do because they all voted for a bill earlier this year that would mandate every single state allow partial birth abortion up to the moment of birth and would force you to pay for it with your tax dollars. The Democrats are the true radicals when it comes to abortion.
I want you to hear what Lindsey Graham said because it's 2 or 3 points either way. Herschel Walker's up or down. And then you had this controversy, and Warnock stayed quiet. Why? Because there's a domestic abuse allegation against him. There's lack of child support allegation against him. There's all types of controversy. This is, you know, Senator Lindsey Graham, like you, Senator Cotton, had a lot of success campaigning in the South. Cut 18.
Here's Herschel's problem. He's being outspent 3-1. He needs to run ads talking about Warnock voting against border security and increasing the IRS by 87,000 votes. He needs to run ads telling the people in Georgia that Warnock has shut down domestic oil and gas production in the United States, making us more dependent on foreign oil and gas. And he also needs to tell the story about the double standard here. This October surprise against Herschel, you think that's an accident? They waited this long to drop it right before the election. So here's what you can do to help Herschel Walker and to help your own family. If you live in Georgia, vote for Herschel. Tell your friends to vote for Herschel. If you don't have a friend, go make one. If you don't live in Georgia, you can tell people you know in Georgia to vote for Herschel.
So he just get down, get dirty. Is there that type of hustle in the Herschel camp?
Oh, yeah. From what I saw yesterday, Brian, what I've seen from Herschel and his team all year long, he's working at it like it's final game of the football season and the playoff berth is on the line. Lindsey is right. If you live in Georgia, don't just vote for Herschel. But as I said yesterday, the most important advertisement is not what you see on TV. It's you talking to your family and your friends and your coworkers, anyone who trusts your judgment and your opinion and saying, I'm for Herschel. Here's why, and I hope you will be too. And Lindsey laid out the case why, that Raphael Warnock's been a rubber stamp for Joe Biden. He's voted against securing our border. He's voted to hire 87,000 new IRS agents as opposed to the Border Patrol agents we need at the border. He's voted against cracking down on fentanyl smugglers. He's voted for trillions of dollars of new spending that has caused this record high inflation. If you want to change, if you want to break on the Biden's Democrats' agenda, then vote for Herschel Walker. If you're not in Georgia, then maybe think about sending him a few dollars so he can communicate to those voters who will make the difference.
So you talk about communicating. I've never seen anything quite like it. John Fetterman barely does 15-minute appearances, does almost no interviews, will only agree to one debate, and needs closed captioning because he can't understand what people say, but he can understand by reading. I feel bad for him, but is he capable of being senator Listen to what was on MSNBC last night. This Dasha Burns was able to do an interview with him, and this is what she observed. Cut 6.
We had a monitor set up so that he could read my questions because he still has lingering auditory processing issues as a result of the stroke. Just in some of the small talk prior to the interview, before the closed captioning was up and running, it did seem that he had a hard time understanding our conversations.
I mean, that's unbelievable. In the Senate, you're an experienced senator. Do you need to understand when people talk, and do you need to be able to talk?
Well, Brian, first off, let me say I wish Mr. Fetterman very well and a full recovery. I wouldn't wish what's happened to him on anyone, and I'm sorry that it happened to him. And I do hope he makes a full recovery. But I want to make 2 points about John Fetterman. First is that irrespective of where his condition is now and where it's going, it's plain now that he misrepresented to the people of Pennsylvania over the summer the severity of his condition. It is very hard to work in the Senate if you cannot have a discreet private conversation, on the Senate floor or in someone's office. He may be able to use closed captioning at hearings and other public events, but a lot of work happens behind the scenes, and John Fetterman misrepresented the severity of his condition to the Pennsylvania voters. I wonder what else he may be misrepresenting to them. And second, his recovery and the pace of it is the least of my concerns about John Fetterman for Pennsylvanians. I'm much more concerned about his radical record, especially his record on crime. He has a history as a member of the clemency board in Pennsylvania of voting to let serious violent felons out of prison early. And just think about this, Brian. He was asked once, what would he do if he could have a magic wand? What's one thing? And it wasn't to reduce inflation. It wasn't to close the border. It wasn't to end the fentanyl epidemic that's killing so many Pennsylvanians. It wasn't even to find a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers so they could start winning some games. It was to end long sentences for murderers. That's where his priorities are. That's not the priority of the Pennsylvania voters. That's why they're going to elect them at Oz in November.
Yeah, I mean, nothing against anyone with a stroke, but if I had a stroke, I couldn't do my job. I'm not saying I wouldn't get benefits and Fox wouldn't have compassion, but I just couldn't do it. Tom, you'd be senator, you'd be filling in for me, and until I recovered.
There's no one who can fill in for you, Kilmeade.
An Ivy League education with an infantry background, with a session in Congress and 2 terms as a senator. I think you're qualified. I want to talk to you about Ukraine. It seems to me that Vladimir Putin's inner circle is closing, and his barrage of rockets, while devastating and cruel, to me shows a little bit of desperation because he cannot win on the battlefield. You fought in close contact. You learned to fight in the infantry. The Ukrainians are destroying the Russians in face-to-face contact. The Russians are not committed to this fight. Here is Vladimir Zelensky on what he is seeing so far. Cut 22.
As of this morning, there were 28 missiles, of which 20 were shot down. More than 15 drones, almost all of them are Iranian combat drones. Most were shot down. On October 10, Dmytro Shumsky showed excellent skills, and the reaction shot down 2 terrorist cruise missiles with the help of Stinger manpads. One person saved dozens of lives. Thank you for that.
They want a missile defense system. We said we're going to get him there, and said Germany is supposed to help. And we are going to, it looks like, according to the Wall Street Journal, greenlight something that goes beyond what the HIMARS will do in the field of battle. What do you know?
Well, Brian, the missile attacks on civilian targets this week have been another barbaric action by Vladimir Putin. I can tell you that the action, though, that matters from a strategic standpoint is what you cited at the beginning. It's the frontline infantry and artillery troops in eastern and southern Ukraine who are retaking vital territory. These barbaric missile attacks, as gruesome as they are, and despite the loss of life they've caused, are not going to have a strategic impact on the war. If anything, they will simply further deepen Ukrainian resolve, if that's possible, against Vladimir Putin and against this invasion. If this is the new phase of war, though, then no question the West needs to provide more air defense systems to Ukraine so they can protect civilian population centers. These are not escalatory, as the Biden administration often worries about. They're not offensive weapons. They're simply designed to protect civilian population centers, just like we help our allies around the world in South Korea and Japan and the Middle East protect against missile strikes as well. And frankly, European governments need to do more to provide those kind of systems as well. The way to end this war is to back Ukraine to the hilt so they can get Russian troops off of Ukrainian soil.
There's a lot of Republicans who don't want to do this anymore. Say, we have so many needs here with $32 trillion in debt. We're giving money out. We're not following through and making sure and giving out arms and making sure that it's getting where it's supposed to. We hope it is, but there's no follow through with it. What do you say to people that are saying that I'm not sure we should be in this conflict?
Well, the reason this conflict started is Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine because he's always wanted to reclaim Ukraine for the greater Russian Empire. It's not anything the United States did. We're not fighting this war. We are simply enabling the Ukrainians to fight a war for their own soil. As Churchill wrote, it is the primary right of any people to fight and to die, and especially to kill, to defend their own land. And the best way to bring peace to Ukraine and reestablish peace and deterrence in Europe is to allow Ukraine to defend its own territory. When you see the news about how much money is being spent in Ukraine, remember, that's not simply spending money or giving Ukraine money to spend. It is mostly the in-kind value of the rockets and the artillery and the other weapon systems that we're providing them, most of which is made here in the United States, much of which is being bought here with those tax dollars to help provide good, high-paying American manufacturing jobs in our defense industry, like the workers in South Arkansas who have been working overtime for 10 months to ensure that Ukraine has the munitions they need and to backfill the munitions we need.
Is the backfilling going on? There's concerns of Oliver North and others that it's not being done, that when we're emptying our coffers, we're not refilling them. Do you know for sure it's being refilled?
So it's not going fast enough, Brian. That's why I proposed legislation to substantially increase spending on America's munitions. What we need is certainty in the order allotments and the appropriations for these companies that make systems like the Javelin or like the HIMARS system or like the shells that go in those artillery systems. These are not, they're advanced weapons, don't get me wrong, but they're not a stealth fighter. They're not an aircraft carrier. They don't take years to make. They can be made with a strong enough commitment of resolve, both the money that we spend for ourselves and our foreign partners who want to invest in them, that these companies can open up a new production line or they can run a third shift on the production line. We do need to substantially increase our rate of production of these kinds of weapons, and we can if we show the resolve and commitment to do so.
All right. Stay on top of it, Senator. I know you will. Senator Tom Cotton helping out Herschel Walker as there's a sprint now, 27 days till midterm election day. Senator, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.